familiar. So if you don't know by now, then you should probably get familiar.
What's going on, guys? It is AJTBLS here, doing a deck profile video for the Jinzo&Tonic channel. Wishing you a happy and safe 2021, and let's hope that 2021 is a better year than 2020. So let's get right into it. So the deck that I'm presenting you guys with today is my take on the Rescue Cat deck engine, mixed with Burn, otherwise known as Panda Burn, but my specific deck here doesn't fully rely on the burn capabilities that it does present. There's other ways to beat your opponent. So let's get right into it. So we have a 14 monster count, a 15 spell count, and a 11 trap count. This deck provides the ability to go the long haul with your opponent, and anyone who plays GOAT format knows that the longer the game goes on and the more cards that are drawn, it's usually more advantageous to the player who has Burn in their deck. For obvious reasons, the Burn will eventually add up in total over 8,000 throughout the whole duel, and also with more cards, it's more damage that Secret Barrel provides. So that's one aspect of the deck, but the main aspect that this deck provides and the main ability that it has is to OTK or one-turn kill your opponent. Using this cute little cat over here mixed with Last Will, it provides enough damage to destroy your opponent even when they're at 8,000 LP. So let's take a look at the monsters here. So we run 3 Death Wombat. The reason for this is that it is a searchable target from Rescue Cat, as it is a level 3 or lower beast type, and this is the actual biggest beater at level 3, offering 1600 attack. The ability of Death Wombat is any damage to you from a card effect becomes 0. So if you're playing against Burn, for example, the opponent will not be able to do any damage from that Burn card to you while Death Wombat's up on the field. This effect sometimes is relevant in OTK examples when you're using Death Wombat on a ring. When you have Death Wombat up and you have a Panda up, for example, and you have some Ojama trios up, and you activate Ring of Destruction on your own Death Wombat, on your own Panda, you will actually take no damage from the Burn, and your opponent will, because you have Death Wombat up. So that's just an explanation of the 3 Death Wombat. It's just basically used as a primary reason that it is the biggest searchable beater that is 3 stars from Rescue Cat. Then we have Exiled Force. Really cool card, obviously used to just basically out any monster on the board. And this is really cool when used with Last Will, as Last Will trigger once you activate Exiled Force. So let's say you activate Last Will and in M1, you summon Exiled Force, call priority, destroy one of your opponent's monsters. This will allow you to search a Rescue Cat. So Last Will is in Exiled Force provides some really cool combos. And we have 3 Pandas, absolute staple card, and it goes well with Ojama Trio. This Panda is obviously searchable through Rescue Cat, and Panda gains 500 attack per every monster on your opponent's side of the board. So this Panda can become really big really quickly. And Mindless Radiant, absolute staple in any cat deck, as it provides a attack increase of 500 per each Earth monster. 500 to every Earth monster on the board. So actually, when you summon Mindless Radiant, it doesn't have 300 attack. It actually has 800 attack because its effect applies to itself, and the effects do stack. So when you bring out 3 Mindless Radiant and 1 Death Wombat, that's actually enough damage to kill your opponent in 1 turn. Because the Death Wombat will go to 3,100 attack, and each Mindless Radiant will be at 1,800 each. So that's a very common OTK. And obviously now this is just the main engine of the deck, the Rescue Cat. A cool combo with this is that you summon it, call priority, and you bring out, with Last Will, of course. So you'd use Last Will, summon Rescue Cat, call priority, bring out 2 Mindless Radiant. The Last Will now search out another Rescue Cat. You use priority again, and you can now bring out another Radiant and another Wombat, and you have enough damage to kill your opponent if that's an open board. This is also, there's a lot more combos you can do with Rescue Cat. You can also summon it, call priority, use Torrential Tribute to clear the board for your opponent, and there's just endless amounts of combos you can do with this card, and the whole deck actually revolves around this card. This is the most important card in the deck, and that's why the deck is named after this cute little cat. So anyways, moving on to the next monster. This is Sangan, GOAT format staple, 1000 attack, little beater, under the 4 stars, where the only 4-star monster that my deck plays is Exiled Force, and that's because it's needed for other combos. And Sangan lets you search out a cat, lets you search out whatever's needed to work your opponent's board. So now moving on to Giant Grenade, 3 of. This just basically makes your opponent pick up all the spell traps on the field and your own spell traps in the field, allowing you for that clear board for an OTK. Very self-explanatory card. Also works well in conjunction with Premature Burial, as if you activate Premature Burial, bringing a card from your graveyard back alive, and you activate Giant Grenade, your monster actually stays on the field, and Premature Burial goes back to your hand, allowing you to use it again. Graceful Charity, self-explanatory, part of the Trinity. Heavy Storm, again, self-explanatory, GOAT format staple, and it is like a Trinade except it destroys everything. 3 Last Will, absolutely needed for this deck. Provides that ability to OTK your opponent, and really powerful card, and sometimes misunderstood in this format, but it is extremely powerful. So now we have Level Limit Area B. So this is more of a defensive card. In like a stall card, it goes really well because all monsters that are level 4 or higher are immediately changed to defense position, even on summon. So an example of an even on summon would be if your opponent summons Breaker the Magical Warrior and chooses to destroy Level Limit Area B, it actually will still be summoned in defense for that turn, and it cannot be changed till next turn from your opponent. This card is really relevant in terms of providing protection so you can survive, as there isn't really much defense other than stall defense in this deck. So then Mystical Space Typhoon, again, some sort of removal spell trap for your opponent. Pot of Greed. I still don't understand what this card does to this day, but it is a staple for GOAT format. Explained Premature Burial already. The only downside for this card that is sometimes relevant is that it costs 800 LP, but still it is just absolutely necessary if you're running Rescue Cat, so you can use the effect again, and 3 Giant Grenade and also Exiled Force. So now Reload. I'm always on the fence with this card, but there are some times where you just draw garbage and you need to just change your hand, and it's just not applicable to what your opponent is saying or what the threat is on board. So sometimes Reload is really helpful, but I don't know if this is the best card at all times for the main deck. I'm always on the fence between it, but in any 40-card deck, there will be a couple cards that you're on the fence with, and Reload is a card that I'm on the fence with, but it is pretty good. Moving on, Snatch Steal, steal an opponent's monster. Really good for OTK decks, provides that extra damage, absolute staple. So now moving on to the traps. 2 compulsory evacuation devices. This works really well against set monsters and Thousand Eyes Restrict. You send it back to the extra deck. Doesn't give them the Dark in the Grave. And I actually usually side these both out if I see that my opponent is not playing any Metamorphosis, and I usually put in 2 Wave Motion Cannons. Moving on to Gravity Bind. This is again a protection card. Operates similarly to Level Limit Area B. And now 2 Ojama Trios, absolute staple, locks your opponent's board, goes extremely well with Panda. Ring of Destruction, arguably one of the best traps in GOAT format, provides that burn damage when needed. Also clears a monster off the board, and just absolutely really strong card. 3 Secret Barrels, in my opinion, the strongest burn card in the format, other than like Ring of Destruction, if you really want to call that a burn card. It's not really a burn card, but kind of that's what it does. But Secret Barrel goes really well because I'm playing 2 Ojama Trios, helps the count for burn damage, and goes well in the deck. And then Torrential Tribute, needed in any cat deck, as you can call priority, clear the board, and you have now an open monster board, right? You summon Rescue Cat, you call Prio, you chain Torrential Tribute to the original summon, the board clears, you still get your effect. A really, really powerful card, and really serves as a nice defensive card as well. So now moving on to the side deck, and we won't spend too much time on it, because these are all subject to change and user preference, and also goes with the meta. I side 2 Cypher Soldiers because it is under level 4. It has a really nasty effect against people who play Warriors, and it also goes well because it's an Earth monster, right? So we're going to get that boost from Milus Radiant. Goes really well with the deck. Lightning Vortex, good side card against decks that are like Reasoning Gate, or I guess even Warrior would do well against. Good card. I have a second reload here. Not very often I put this in, but there are times where it could see merit, and I do actually think a different side card would be better, but this is what I have in for now. 2 Wave Motion Cannons. I side this in when my opponent doesn't see much of my burn cards in game 1, and I OTK them with Cat, because they're likely going to side in Threatening Roars, and they're going to side in a whole bunch of stuff that deals with OTKs, and they might sleep on the burn damage, right? So I put these in when I don't see TER. I usually put these in and take out the 2 Compulses. Dust Tornado. Again, this isn't really the best side card, but I have it in here for when I see opponents play like a burn counter or a really heavy spell trap counter. I put this in. And I don't know what I would remove necessarily to put this in. Again, it's dependent on the matchup. 3 Just Desserts, again, used in the same cases with Wave Motion Cannon. Royal Decree, this card is an interesting choice. It rarely gets put in, but it sometimes is applicable. 3 Threatening Roars, this is used against like OTK decks, and another Wabaku, again, used for OTK decks, as this deck doesn't really have much protection against those. The extra deck is completely not applicable, but it is filled out for when the duel starts and they see 15 cards in your side deck. They don't know right away that you're not playing Metamorphosis, right? So now to quickly go over what decks my deck does well against, and let's take a look at the main decks that this deck like kind of crushes or does really well against. So any deck that is like on meta, or not like some weird off-meta deck, this deck has a good chance to win against when piloted correctly. This deck does really well against like Turbo, against Chaos Control, any deck that plays Scapegoat, obviously. Like Panda will be really big against it, and it really catches your opponent on surprise when you're playing against these meta decks, because they're expecting to be playing against another meta deck, right? When I load up a queue, I expect to see Chaos Sorcerer, I expect to see decks that have that engine, and this deck would do really well against it because it has the element of surprise, it has all the removal to make opponents summon the goats, and also it's not slow. This deck is really fast. It has the ability to kill you in 1 turn. So any deck that is not prepared for it, right off the get-go, this deck has a good winning chance against it. This deck is also RNG based. You need to open a strong hand usually to win right off the bat, obviously. But I piloted this deck for Season 3 on Dueling Book, or Season 2 rather, and I used this deck solely throughout my YouTube series, and I got to about rank 8 using only this deck, and then I eventually switched and I went to a different build that I'll go over another time, and I got to rank 3, but this deck is really, really strong against any meta deck. The decks that it is not that strong against, again, are those off-meta, weirder decks, like if you're playing against, let's say, Empty Jar, or you're playing against, like like last turn, or you're playing against any really weirder deck, or like another cat deck, or any deck actually that sides properly for game 2 and 3, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. Like, that's a big thing with this deck, is that you need to win game 1, because in game 2, your biggest enemy's coming in, right? They're going to be siding in those T-Roars if they have them. They're going to be siding in Royal Decree if they have it. They're going to be siding in Wabaku if they play it. You know, cards that slow down this engine really can kill it. The biggest enemy to this deck is Threatening Roar. And they would just wait for you to use Trinade, and they would activate like a T-Roar or a Wabaku, and it's just like, okay, there goes one of my OTK pieces, right? Because you need a clear board to be confident to go all in with Rescue Cat. To keep the video short, I'm going to end my explanation here. I'm very active on Discord. Feel free to message me if you want any information regarding it at AJTBLS. You could find me in any of the popular Yu-Gi-Oh! Discord servers. And I would again want to thank Jinzo&Tonic for having my deck featured on his channel. And to see videos of this deck in action, I encourage you to go to my channel and take a look at some footage of it. Thank you very much for watching, and have a blessed and happy New Year.